Hey guys, Megan here. I spontaneously decided to make a video, so here I am. I would love to make videos regularly, but because I've gone back to school to become a counselor, things have just gotten a little hectic in my life, and so I have not been uploading regularly, hardly at all. But I would like to do more of that because I love BookTube and I love making videos and interacting with you all. But yeah, last night I was planning on joining the Little House Readathon hosted by Lizzie Faye Loves Books and Naomi's Bookshelf. And then as I was beginning to read Little House in the Big Woods, I was like, you know what? I wanna talk about this. I wanna film myself and I wanna talk about this and I wanna put this on BookTube. So I just started filming last night and this morning, and I didn't bother filming an intro because I was just like, you know what, if I make a big deal out of this, it's not gonna happen. So now I'm filming the intro. I'm about, a third of the way through Little House in the Big Woods by Laura Ingalls Wilder. This is for the Little House Readathon, as I said, which is taking place from February 7th to February 10th, because Laura was born on February 7th, 1867, and died February 10th, 1957. So 90 years later. Yeah, I grew up on the Little House books. I love them so much. I grew up with the TV show. I grew up with the paper dolls. I grew up with my sister Emma, my older sister, made a rag doll just like Charlotte, Laura's doll. She followed the Little House on the Prairie craft book and made these dolls, made them dresses, made them beds for me and my sister, like the whole 9 yards. Like, I wanted to be Laura. I dressed up as Laura. We played the games, like Fox and Geese, which is a game where you make a big circle in the snow, like a big track with spokes like a wagon wheel, and then you play tag through the spokes and you run around like that. Like we lived Little House basically when I was younger. But Little House has problematic material in it. There is a lot of racism underlying, even just the part that I just read, using a rude word for a person of African descent, not the N-word. I don't think the N-word ever appears in the series, but using a rude word to describe them. So there definitely is racist ideology underlying whenever they talk about people of other races, especially the First Nations people. But I do want to say that when my mom was reading these books to us when we were kids, she acknowledged that this is racist ideology and this is not okay and this is not right. So even though this is a joyful part of my childhood, my mom always helped us to approach it from a nuanced perspective of this is not okay. Even though we love these people, we love these characters, the way they treated or the way they thought about people from other races, that was not okay. So yeah, I just wanted to preface that. Does that mean I'm gonna throw out the whole series and never read it? No, because honestly, like this is a part of the history that they did have these racist ideologies, that they took over and displaced First Nations people. They took their land. They owned the land, which in a lot of First Nations ideologies, you don't own the land. Like the land isn't something that can be owned. So I recognize that there's some really problematic things, but it's important that we don't forget those things, that we remember that those tragic atrocities happened against those people. Yeah, I think it's an important thing to talk about. So yeah, reading with a critical mind. Anyways, it seems like it's a little early in the morning to be talking about this stuff. My hair's still wet from my shower and I'm like, okay, these are big topics that I cannot cover in one little video. Obviously they are huge discussions, but I am enjoying a lot of this. It's funny because I'm taking a child, like a lifespan development psychology class right now. So we're focusing on childhood right now, and it's funny because some of the parenting choices they make are so bad, and they're just, they're just what they thought was best to do for the child. That they thought that this was the best way to raise a child. But like the whole, you could be seen but not heard at the dinner table. Like that's so bad for a child's brain development because they have to be talking, they have to be using language to connect that language with what they're learning, like about the foods and about the, they need to learn to regulate themselves and ask for more food if they need more food, or if they don't need any more food, they need to stop. And the parents just like, they're not allowed to talk, but they'll just pile up more and more food on their plates. And it's like, that's really unhealthy because the parent doesn't know how full the kid's stomach is. So anyways, it's just funny, kind of just obviously they didn't know that back in the 1860s because those scientific discoveries had not been made. Those psychological things had not been tested and discovered and publicized. So I'm not criticizing them at all for doing that. They did not know any better. But it's still just really funny for me to be reading one day in my psychology textbook about like, don't do these things instead. And then they're doing the opposite. So anyways, yeah, I'm enjoying that a lot. And now I will show you some footage that I took last night, and I'll just kind of go through myself reacting to reading Little House in the Big Woods. I wouldn't really call this a reading vlog because I'm not going to be showing myself cooking and, doing other things, working out, but I will be filming my reaction as I'm reading through this. Hey guys, it is the night before the beginning of the Little House Readathon, and I have decided to start rereading the original series, beginning with Little House in the Big Woods. This classic. This is my childhood copy. You might be able to see here. Here, I'll get down on the ground. These are my copies. And I've got these cute little bookends from when I was a child. My mom read me the whole series, like, before I turned 6, like, during kindergarten. She read the whole series to me. So it's been a while since I've gone back to the beginning and reread Little House in the Big Woods. I've read some of the later ones more recently, but I'm excited to go right back to the beginning, and I'm sure the words will be familiar. I'll be like, oh yeah, I can quote along with this passage, because I think I have read it since I was 5, but like, I grew up just saturated in the Little House culture, but I have not read it. I haven't read any of them at least since I was like 20 or 22. Yeah, so tomorrow or maybe tonight I'll begin listening to the audiobook narrated by Cherry Jones. I believe it has somebody performing the fiddle music, which I'm really excited about. And yeah, I'm excited to get back into Little House. This is my first time doing the readathon. Naomi from Naomi's Bookshelf, my cousin, is helping to host it, and so I'm really thrilled to support her along with the other hosts in this. So yeah, I will check in tomorrow once the readathon actually begins. Okay, so I've only listened to the first 10 seconds of Little House in the Big Woods, and I already have something to say. The opening sentence in the audiobook was different from the actual opening sentence, and it'll make sense when I read it. This is the opening sentence from the book of Little House in the Big Woods. Once upon a time, 60 years ago, a little girl lived in the big woods of Wisconsin in a little gray house made of logs. 60 years ago. In the audiobook, it says many years ago. And the reason why I noticed it, I mean, obviously, I guess I did remember some of the words and sentences, but I remember as a little girl questioning my mom and being like, oh, 60 years ago, so when was that? And then I remember my mom explaining, oh, not actually 60 years ago, but much longer than that is when this story takes place. So I understand why they changed it for the audiobook, but I don't know, I kind of like how the narration dates the story. Because it's like the manuscript, like the book is already dated. It's about a dated story, but then the narration dates itself, which I kind of like. Yeah, okay, now I am going to go for real this time. It's Sunday morning, February 7th. Happy birthday, Laura Ingalls Wilder. She's 154 today. So yeah, I've continued reading Little House in the Big Woods, and oh my goodness, I'm just like smiling my way through it. I just love these illustrations. Like, they're just gorgeous. I mean, no wonder as a 5-year-old, I remember, so my mom would have her copy, and she would read out of her copy, and then my sisters and I would all listen to her read, but then my mom would also pick up used copies so that we could have our own copies and look at the pictures and try to read along while mom was reading aloud to us. And so we did a lot of these things that Laura and Mary are doing. Here they're pouring maple syrup onto snow so that they harden and they become candies. We did that. We had Little House like cookbooks and craft books and things that we did, and so that was so much fun, and I was related with Laura so much. One of the reasons why I related to Laura so much was just being this little rambunctious girl, and even her hair. I had very similar hair to Laura, just that haircut, and so she looked like me, and so I just related to her. So yeah, there they are pouring out some maple syrup. Oh my goodness, this part, I was just smiling the whole time listening to this part. So they are making pictures, they say. So they stand on a stump and then they fall down into the snow and they make a picture with their body, and they try to crawl out so that they don't wreck the picture. And I just so related to doing that as a kid, and just, playing in the snow all day, just all day, and just feeling like, just living so presently in the moment, and just feeling like, life is perfect and all there is this joyous moment in the snow. So yeah, I totally related to that, and I loved that. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this. Maybe I'll finish the book today. I mean, who knows? I don't know what I'm doing today, but that would be kind of cool if I did that. I've continued reading Little House in the Big Woods. It is just warming my heart like nobody's business. I mean, it does have the nostalgia factor for me coming from my childhood, but I was just struck by this part. It's in chapter, what chapter is this? This is chapter 5, called Sundays, and it's about just keeping the Sabbath. And I mean, I grew up in a Christian, I'm a Christian, I'm from a Christian background, so I actually do think that it's really important to rest on Sundays. That's what keeping the Sabbath means. It just means resting. But resting does not mean the way they're taking it back then. Like, for me, resting is doing fun things. It's, reading. It's going and out doing things. It's just, Sunday is a day of recuperation for me. It's a day I look forward to because I'm like, I'm not doing any homework, I'm not doing any housework, I'm just having a great day. But of course, that's not how Laura sees it, because, I remember this. They had to walk to church because they could not hitch up the horses because that would be work. So they had to walk, but they had to walk slowly. And it says here, they must walk slowly and solemnly, looking straight ahead. They must not joke or laugh or even smile. That just sounds horrible. Like, no wonder Laura hates Sundays so much. They just sound terrible. Like, you have to play quietly, and you can't play outside, and you have to just sit on your chair, and you can't do anything. You can't play with your doll. You can't sew. And I was just like, that is so antithetical to what the Bible says. Like, it says, rejoice always, like in every circumstance find joy. And obviously it's hard to do that sometimes, but especially when the Sabbath, God made it so that we could rest and recuperate. It's just like, no, this is not what should be happening. But of course, it was a different time. There were different beliefs that were passed down. So yeah. But I did laugh when Pa told Laura the story. I forgot about this, about Laura's grandfather when he was a boy, how he and his brothers snuck out when their father fell asleep to go sledding, and then as they were sliding down the hill, they a wild hog came out of the woods, and they just like hit the hog, and the hog just like fell on top of them onto the sled, and then they just like sledded all the way down the hill with the pig like squealing his way all the way down. I was just like, oh my goodness, that's really funny. I mean, I did lots of sledding growing up, but we never had a pig suddenly appear and end up on the sled. When I was sledding once when I was a little girl, we had a hill in the front yard, or we still do, and I slid down lying on the crazy carpet face first, and it was icy. It was icy that day. It was near the end of the winter, so things had been melting and freezing and melting and freezing, and so it was icy. And my face, I just went straight into the house, so I hit full on square on my face on the pavement or the cement of the foundation of the house, and it hurt so bad. And I remember I walked into the house, I just got up and I started crying immediately. I was like 7, and I walked into the house and I looked down, and there was just this pool of blood when I looked down. And so because of that, all my baby teeth fell out, and I had to get braces when my adult teeth came in. So yay for sledding. But I always did love it. Even as an adult, I like going sledding, and we have some great hills near our house, and people build jumps into the hill, and then you go flying off the jump, and sometimes you go flying off your sled and you just go tumbling down the hill. So yeah, a lot of these like more simple pleasures like sledding and playing in the snow, it's just like bringing me back to my childhood, and even to, you know, just playing in the snow as an adult. Although I do need to get some new snow pants because mine are too small for me. I need to get some adult snow pants. So anyways, I'm gonna keep going. I just read the part where it's nighttime and Ma and Laura go out to milk Suki the cow, and they find that Suki has gotten out of the barn, and Ma hits her on the shoulder to get her to move back away from the gate and into the barn, and then they realize it's not Suki, it's a bear! So they're in the dark, so they couldn't see very well from the light of the lantern, but then when they realize it's a bear, Ma says, Laura, turn around, go into the house. And then Laura immediately turns around, she obeys, and she goes into the house, and then Ma walks slowly with her to the house, and then suddenly runs and snatches her, and they run into the house, and they're safe. But I always remember that as a little girl, when they thought that it was Suki the cow, but it was actually a bear. I remember that moment, and I remember how obedient Laura was, and how obedience saved Laura's life. And so I think I remember like internalizing that message and being like, I have to be obedient too and not question my parents. Back to school, part 2. Life lessons learned on Little House on the Prairie. If an older man takes you back to his house and offers to give you a bath and wash your clothes, it means that he wants to talk to you and ask you about your feelings and help you work through your problems, right? So Little House, the TV show, wasn't always known for its realism, but that was a little bit out of context, that clip I just talked about. So I should say that she just got in a mud fight with Nellie Olson. That's why her clothes needed washing. Should Almanzo have taken her back to his house and, you know, offered her a bath and washed her clothes? No! He should have taken her home! But it does make for some really entertaining TV. When I was a little girl, one of my favorite chapters in Little House in the Big Woods was the chapter called Dance at Grandpa's. So, the Ingalls grandpa has like a whole bunch of family members over, and they all have this big dance, and I love these illustrations so much. This is two of Laura's aunts, Aunt Dosha and Aunt Ruby, and they're doing their hair in the nice like Victorian style where they have it parted, and then the back goes in the braided bun and the front goes in like folds over the ears. I did my hair similarly for this channel once. This picture is adorable. Here, I'm just gonna, how can I hold it so you can see it? I love this because it's Laura and her cousin Laura. She has the same name. There's two Laura Ingalls. And this Laura, the cousin, is saying, my little sister, my baby sister is prettier than your baby sister. And Laura is just so indignant. And she's like, no, my baby sister, baby Carrie, is just as pretty as your little sister. And I just love it. Like, there's something about her face that reminds me of when I was a child, just looking so indignant. I don't know what it is. Yeah, but I love that picture. And then there's another really great illustration in here. Like, look at them all dancing. They're all just dancing. Laura's dancing with her uncle here, who ran off to join the army when he was 14 in the Civil War to be a drummer boy, and now he's a man, and he's turned out wild, apparently. So, yeah, like, those illustrations are just gorgeous, and it's just such a fun chapter. They're all dancing together, and she talks about how her grandmother was just, like, jigging, and she kept jigging with her Uncle George, and how she basically jigged harder and faster and longer, and so her son had to give up basically because she out-jigged him. And oh, here's another. They're getting food. You can see the way her hair is done again. I think that's Ma this time, and there's Pa. They're getting lots of food. It just seems like such a fun, joyous family time. So I love that chapter. Yeah, I'm now about probably 2/3 of the way through, and I'm hoping that I will finish tonight before I go to bed. I'm going to listen to the audiobook as I do dishes. And yeah, this is just warming my heart like nobody's business. Well, I'm just about to head to bed, but I finished reading Little House in the Big Woods. It was so good. Like, I only listened to a tiny bit of it last night, but I basically read the whole book today, and it was really, really enjoyable. So cozy, and just so nice to see this world through the eyes of a child. Like, in the book, she's supposed to be 5 years old. In real life, she was about 3, but the publisher was like, nobody wants a protagonist who's only 3 years old, so they made her 5. But yeah, it was just so neat to see through the eyes of a child, just the wonder, like going to town for the first time and seeing that many houses together, and seeing a lake for the first time, and, you know, collecting the smooth pebbles at the lake, and like getting a piece of candy. And so it was really, really sweet. Obviously, I did remember, but I kind of forgot how unhealthy this idea that Laura had as a child, that she was kind of the bad child and Mary was the good child, and Mary's hair was prettier because it was blonde and all this. So I just felt really bad. But of course, those kinds of like minor dysfunctions are a part of a real family, and so it makes sense. But it still made me sad, of course. So anyways, I loved this so much. I've put Little House on the Prairie, the next book, on hold, the same audiobook performed by Cherry Jones, narrated by her. And it's funny because this is how I read the books originally. My mom read them aloud to me and I looked at the pictures, and that's kind of what I did with this. I listened to the audiobook and I puttered around and did dishes, and then I would look at the pictures as they came up. So it was like, it really did feel like today I just stepped back into my childhood, and it was so much fun. I'm so glad I was a part of this readathon. So yeah, thank you to Lizzie Faye Loves Books and Naomi from Naomi's Bookshelf for doing this. So yeah, that's all I have for you today. May you all be filled with peace, hope, love, and joy. So take care, everyone. Bye.